Hello everyone, welcome back to Doom Productions. Here we make feature films and we also make videos about film and filmmaking. If you want to see some of our feature films, be sure to subscribe and check out our channel. There's lots there for you to see. Today I want to talk about a project that some of you guys might have heard of that I've been working on for the past couple of months. This project is called The Bell Rings. Earlier this week, I tweeted some behind the scenes pictures and I kind of wanted to share more about where that project is at and then also kind of just the origins of that movie and how long I've had this movie idea and what it's been like to actually be making it. So Bell Rings right now is in post-production. We shot over the course of 1 month for that movie, and it was a really, really hard movie shoot. It was physically demanding, but it was also very demanding just as a film because I've never been a director of a movie who's also written a full screenplay. I was working with actors. It's the most complete project that I've been at the helm of as a filmmaker. So it was a lot of learning. I made a lot of mistakes, but I also am very proud of the fact that I finished the movie, finished directing the movie, and that this movie is going to be a thing that's coming out in the not too distant future. So what I wanted to share about today is kind of the origins of the movie and kind of talk just a bit about some of the things that came out of that. So where this movie began for me, years and years ago, I had this movie concept called The Bell Rings. And what that movie originally was going to be was about someone finding a wish-granting bell. And but whenever they rang it, it would be set in like this town outside of time. Whenever they rang the bell, it would cause someone in the town to go kind of crazy and go after the person. It's kind of like this weird, not quite a zombie movie, but a zombie movie. And this was inspired by the short film that I recommended from this YouTube channel called Make Do Films. And the short film was called On My Way. And it's a really great short film. Definitely recommend you check out their channel. They make great horror short films. But that short film they made about this guy driving to his house in this town going crazy and attacking him really stuck with me. And so I wanted to make this movie that was set in like a town that was kind of like the 50s, but kind of like the 50s if it had just stopped, like time had stopped in this one town. So the world has progressed and become modern except for in this one area, very Twilight Zone-esque. And then I was playing around with this idea for a long time. And then I just kind of decided it was not something that was doable. Getting a full town, getting the casting to fill out this town, it just felt very, it was a cool movie idea, but I just never felt like I could go anywhere with it. So I shelved that idea for a while. I would think about it every now and again. It was still an idea that excited me, but I just knew there were other things I needed to focus on. So I worked on other projects, but the idea of the bell rings always stuck with me. And so eventually I decided, you know what, that story might not be a story I could tell, but I adapted it into this other story about a girl who is deaf, and her grandmother and her mother all live in the same home, and the grandmother's in poor health and passes away. And she's like ringing the bell to get help, but the girl is deaf and can't hear, and the mother's not in the house. So it becomes this haunting movie of this girl who's deaf, but now she can start hearing this bell getting closer and closer. And that was a movie that I was like, oh, it's more doable in terms of casting, but the whole movie was going to be silent. So everything was going to be communicated in sign, and just finding all the actors for that was something we just didn't have access to or didn't have the resources for. So again, the idea got shelved for a very, very long time. And I worked on other projects. We were making lots of short films. And then probably a couple of years later, Doom Productions solidifies into a place that makes feature films. Up to a certain point last year, we were only making short films. And then COVID kind of got us to this point where we were able to make our own feature films, because Jordan and I were both separate in different cities in Oregon. And so we were kind of stuck working on our own, but we decided we both wanted to make our own feature films. And so we worked on those for a while, and that kind of set us off down this path of only making features, which is what we always wanted to do. And now, and then I found myself thinking about, after I made House, what kind of story do I want to follow that up with? Because House was my first feature film ever, and I was working on that movie on my own. And so it was kind of like this eye-opening experience of, okay, where can I go next? How can I push further? And so after the success of House, I wanted to find a story that I felt like could follow it up. And it didn't take me long for the bell rings to call to me again and for me to want to make that movie. So that then became this thing of, how do I adapt these stories and these other ideas I've had? And there had been other little ideas that I kind of would write down every now and again as a potential bell ring story. I love the title more than anything, so I kept trying to find ways to use it and adapt the story in new ways. And who knows, maybe all these stories could have lives of their own as a Bell Rings anthology. I've thought about that, but the Bell Rings became a project that I was like really itching to make. And so after over a couple months period, I started reworking the story and got to this point where I found a way that we could shoot it. And using a lot of the resources that I already had available. You're probably wondering why I'm sitting in here. This is actually one of the main sets of the Bell Rings, the movie that we did shoot finally. This is the shack that Jordan and I's characters live in for the movie. I've kept the movie pretty close to the chest in terms of what the storyline is. Only a couple people have seen clips from it or seen shots. There is a mostly complete trailer that a couple of people in the folk filmmaking movement have been shown. When I flew out to Chicago, I brought a copy with me because I figured there was no better time to show that trailer than with all the other folk filmmakers who were at that event. So it's exciting to kind of have that pressure put on me to get it done. But I guess where this puts me now is, when is the Bell Rings happening? That's a good question. Probably in 2022. This year, we have other things lined up, so we're trying to get those out of the way. So Bell Rings is kind of this thing that I'm working on my own for now, until it's at a point where Jordan can come in and help me out with some of the music and the scoring and kind of the final versions of the edit. And from there, yeah, it'll be coming out soon. I guess with all this teasing and talking about the movie and not giving a whole lot of details, and it's a kind of this vague video that's coming out of nowhere for you guys, I will give a synopsis of the movie. I think that you guys have waited long enough to at least know something about the movie. So The Bell Rings. The Bell Rings is set in the year 1929. It follows the story of two brothers who are living during the Dust Bowl of the American Midwest and are struggling to keep their farm running. And they are now faced with the reality of having to sell their family farm and leave the only town they've ever known. And one of the brothers desperately wants to leave, but the other desperately wants to stay. And all signs point to them having to leave, but one day one of the brothers finds a wish-granting bell. But unfortunately, wishes aren't always fulfilled the way you want. So that's the synopsis of the video of the movie that I will give now. This is a movie that, in my heart, is a spiritual successor to House, but definitely has a life of its own. So I'm excited to give you guys more glimpses into this movie. Once the movie is out, I plan to have a lot of behind the scenes work. Unfortunately, I'm not going to show a teaser or a trailer just yet. You guys have to wait for that. But just know that I am anxiously awaiting showing this movie to you guys. So keep an ear to the ground for more updates from us. We got more things coming out in the meantime, so don't think that we're going to neglect you guys. So be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to know more about what's going on here at Doomed Productions. And until the next time, we'll see you later.